So that basically brings me to the topic of like challenges in robotics and
Mm,
especially startups for us. The
mm,
thing with robotics is that it is money intensive
mm,
a lot more than pure software dev, right? Because you have
mm,
software, you have hardware, and hardware is fucking expensive. And
mm,
if you have a lot of money and you don't think it through, it can just become a black hole where you're throwing money, and after
mm,
a long time you realize that oh shit, like we just lost a lot of money, we did not think it through. But on the other side, as you
mm,
said, if there is a startup which doesn't have a lot of money, so they're pressed for resources,
mm,
it might also mean that people will not even get enough resources to build something, right?
mm,
Where resource could be time, resource could be like stuff you want to buy. So
mm,
that is the biggest challenge, I think. And a good startup knows how to like balance it. So that actually comes down to the people you're working with. I actually think
mm.
personally, it's a general thing, of course. The people you work with is one of the most important decisions in your life.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course.
right? Because the same settings, if you get a different set of people, your experience and your liking towards the domain will change. One last challenge I think with startups is that because you're always pressed for time, like wherever you
Mm,
are in a startup, uh, sometimes you might end up compromising your like production quality or like your development cycle
mm,
in a way that your quality of work reduces, and that can
mm,
come back to you in a very bad way in the future.
mm,
I also think that the right startup knows the difference between instant gratification where you just do patchwork
mm,
versus long term thinking where you delay your like development by a little bit
mm,
to do it well. There is of course a
mm,
balance because a startup is pressed for time and other resources. I have also seen that if you do not develop your product well and it goes into production,
mm.
you will be stuck in the cycle of production where development takes a backseat, and then people will be like, okay, this production gives us money, we just care about production, so just do patchwork and patchwork and patchwork, forget
Mm,
about
mm.
ability and scalability.
I think that journey is also a lot of fun. Like I personally joined a startup or a product-based startup uh, working on cutting-edge tech, but maybe not such bleeding-edge tech which might go into production only say 10 years or 5 years down the line. And the reason for that was I wanted to build something which gets produced in at least a moderate volume. Like
Right.
my code went into maybe 3,000 or 5,000 units of a camera we made. And I actually wrote the functional test infrastructure that ran on the assembly line that I trained workers with, went to the assembly lines and kind of taught people how to do the functional testing for our hardware and peripherals for that. There are so many aspects which come into productionizing a product as well, which I think makes it very appealing to be in a startup as long as you get to work on those sort of challenges. Like you build the best software stack and then you get stuck on something like, okay, but the damn thing takes a minute to boot and nobody's going to use it if that happens. So just the UX aspect of it, or the satisfying all these other requirements which usually wouldn't even occur to you on working in simulation or a system which is already booted up and you're just kind of doing stuff with it. I think that that's also an interesting aspect that you end up looking into. As far as the capital intensive comment you made, yes, definitely it is a lot so. And yes, the people matter, and you rightly so leverage the experience that others have before you in terms of what they bring to the table, what they might have learned in bigger companies or in previous startups of their own or others, so that you, at the very least, come up with new ways of messing things up.
Right.
I mean, that's what I try to do.
No, of
Like
course.
things will obviously go wrong. There's no way in
Right.
hell that you build a product, whether in a big or a small company, and everything works perfectly on track, within timelines, within budget, while keeping middle and upper management happy. That
Right.
never
Yeah,
happens.
never happens.
That's a pipe dream. So the only thing you can strive for is to kind of not be superficial, like you mentioned, have the time and resource at least to go deeper to root cause something, and then avoid at least that problem from resurfacing. If you can
Right.
do that, in addition to what you mentioned by being test driven and focusing on the testing aspect of your development processes and things of that sort, I think that ups the level of quality of your engineering, even on constrained resources when you can't buy the most fancy tools which automate things for you or allow you to do development processes which are there in much bigger companies, because you can't afford the licenses of the tools that you need to do it that certain way. So as long as you know the approach, you know what goes in, you can make it that conscious decision, like I said, of shipping something right now, cutting back on a feature, focusing it on it later, while having the know-how and the chops to pull it off when it comes to that later part. Because you'll always have those cycles between just shipping the best version of that product and now starting work on the next one, either the next product or the next version, and kind of knowing what aspects to focus on instead of just cramming it with more features. Maybe focusing on reliability and testing and iteration, because you can't put the cart before the horse as well, right? A lot of the
Right.
things that you said in terms of development, if you don't have the same thing that you're building again and again, which would be too boring for us, and we wouldn't be at such a company, which is just building A. You need to build some level of A for it to be in some level of a finished stage before you can start with that journey of maybe taking it from a proof of concept to a proper solid prototype
Right.
to a product. So I
Right.
feel that gap or that journey brings in those aspects on its own, and you just need to be around smart people who know when to shift gears into those
Yeah.